Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is James and Emerson from eDirectory, and today we're going to have a discussion about running a sales team. So I'm excited, and I hope everybody can see the slides okay. Yeah, just based on my experience of the last, I guess it's been 10, 15 years now, both working with eDirectory and in other businesses, I've gained a little bit of insight into running a sales team, and I'm hoping to share that with you today. If anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to pop them into the chat, and we'll stop and discuss further. And I'm happy to get into some specifics that I didn't put in the slides, and these are things like, what should you actually pay a sales rep, and how does that work? I didn't put it in the slides just because a lot of it depends on the market that you're in. And so I spent a lot of time working and living in Washington, D.C. area. It's a very, very expensive market. Other places in the United States certainly are much more affordable, and so the price range of everything just kind of changes. And so I didn't put some of that in there, but and then some sectors are different than others, where if it's local business listing sale versus enterprise B2B type sale, the costs and everything, just the whole dynamic of everything changes. So, but anyway, let's get started here. So the first thing is just initial considerations on running a sales team. First you need a sales team. I think that's the first thing you really want to ask yourself and think hard about it. It certainly is possible to run an eDirectory site in any business without a sales team, and just try to do it on marketing alone, where you don't aggressively go out and reach people for sales. The marketing brings the clients to you. There is a phrase that I've heard over and over the years, which is advertising doesn't sell itself. And so advertising is one of the markets, especially at the larger scale, that does have a strong sales culture with at every level, from large television ad sales down to local newspaper ad sales, etc. So it is something to think about. Marketing certainly can work, and it works great for directory sites, actually. It often works best for like low-cost listings where the economics don't necessarily work to have a sales rep calling if it's a $20 a year, $50 a year type listing. Then you can just run it on marketing, email blasts, etc., etc. It also, if you have a known brand, you don't need a sales rep as much as if you don't. If you don't have a known brand, then it's more important to get somebody to go out there and be aggressive for you. So it's something to think about. Running a sales team obviously adds complexity to the business that you don't have if you don't have one. Also, there's a cost investment, a time investment, etc. to it. So think about it carefully. And then, first, just a little bit about types of sales teams, and this is very basic. There's this term inside sales, which is basically a sales team that works from your office, reaching customers via phone, email, etc. Typically, they have a base salary. Often, they rely partly on leads generated from marketing. They certainly can do prospecting, etc. too. And then outside sales, these are typically the sales team that's out in the field. Often they work remote, they visit customers, they're sort of the hunters out there in the wilderness. And the compensation often skews more towards commission instead of base salary type guarantees. It's often easier to start an inside sales team and to start with an inside sales team. There's more investment required, but the chances of success are a little bit higher just because the team is closer to you. You can overhear their conversations, monitor things more carefully, etc. An outside sales team that's effective, often it costs less just because you don't have all the overhead, and thus it can be more profitable, but it's also often a little bit more risky to get started and going. And so many businesses, what they do is start with an inside sales team and then build on an outside sales team on top of that over time. And then one thing to think about is the cost and compensation. There's a bunch of different models. Base salary, you have benefits as part of the cost, commission, reimbursements for travel and other type costs, and then often, depending on how it works, you may have marketing costs, support the sales team, et cetera, et cetera. One thing to always keep in mind is that good salespeople are expensive. And especially if you have a new brand or something that's not well known, you're probably going to need a better sales rep. If you have a brand that everybody knows and works, and et cetera, and tons of traffic coming to your website and everybody knows the site, it may not be so critical that you have a good sale. I mean, obviously, good salespeople tend to turn better ROI, but it is something to keep in mind that you pay for quality often with the sales team. So how to get started? The first step in even thinking about this is to make a plan. There's a model that you want to set up, I guess, before you start running your sales team. And this is, you think about how many sales should a rep that's on target make per month to pay the bills, cover their costs, et cetera, have profit for your business. What does that actually look like? How realistic it is that they're going to make these numbers? And then you can back down from starting at that and then think about how many calls or visits or activities will it require to close a deal. How many deals do you expect them to close per week or per month? How many calls, visits, et cetera, do you expect? And then think about what does each on-target rep cost? And how long you expect the ramp-up period to be. They're not going to make sales probably on the first day of work. It takes time, depending on the complexity of the product that you're selling and everything else. Often a ramp-up period is a minimum of a month, 2 months. Typically, I think people look at a 6-month kind of time frame to get a rep from in the door into fully productive. But it really depends on the business, the market, et cetera. So think about this ramp-up period and what they're actually going to return during this period. And write all that down on paper and just take a look at it and see what makes sense and is it realistic, how everything maps out there. And then you're ready to start on the hiring process if everything looks good and you think you can achieve it. There's a wonderful book that I recommend. I mean, I highly recommend it. I don't recommend that many books, but this is one I highly recommend anybody that does anything with sales read. And it is Great Salespeople Aren't Born, They're Hired. It's by Joe Miller. I think you can get it on Amazon. I don't know if it's out of print. I bought it a number of years ago. But find a copy of it somehow. It's like 90 pages. It's written for a sales rep with a short attention, sales manager that used to be a sales rep with a short attention span in mind. So it's 90 pages, it's entertaining, but there's really some great information in there. Really, key information that's real tactical in terms of how do you do resume collection process, what interview techniques do you use, attitudes to look for, et cetera. It focuses more on hiring, I guess, than actually running the sales team for the long term. But it's really a fascinating book, so I certainly recommend everybody take a look at that. And the basic process that they mentioned in there, I think generally is what you want to do is, for the hiring process of sales reps, you want to cast a wide net. And collect a lot of resumes via Craigslist and other types of ads. And then you put together a phone interview, and you do a very quick phone interview. And often they recommend the person doing the phone interview doesn't do the in-person interview or even make the hiring decision later. It's just a very quick phone interview that asks a number of questions that allows you to determine, different types of things about, are they, do they have the right sort of attitude and stuff about money and activity? Do they have any sales experience, etc.? I think it's a good idea for these directory type sales. Often, you're selling a listing advertising type package, and so it's not a highly complex sale. So you don't need somebody with necessarily a lot of experience. Sometimes less experience is actually better. My experience has been that, from what I've seen from our customers, it does work better to have a sales rep that has had some type of sales experience in their life, even if it's going door to door selling knives or those type of things. And then the other thing is they just need the right energy, and they need to be motivated, financially motivated. There's a lot of people in this world. It's kind of interesting. I work with a lot of software developers, and often the financial motivation isn't their primary thing that they're looking for. They're really looking for something interesting to do. And the sales rep, really should be sort of financially focused, sort of outgoing, etc. One thing that also I've seen over the years is that you will be surprised by the profile of your high-performing reps often. They aren't these slick schmoozer type salespeople that are the typical salesperson that you might think of. Often they're the people that are just very, very productive in terms of making a lot of contacts, etc. Sometimes these people have, just seeing things over the years, sometimes these sales reps have all sorts of issues that might prevent them from being good at other types of jobs, but they whatever it is, they're able to do this very focused type of sale pretty well. So, I would say don't just think of what you think a salesperson looks like. Like really, get people in the door, check the activity numbers, check the results, and then over time you'll probably be able to realize what a profile is that works for you and your business. So then, and one thing you probably want to do actually before you actually start hiring is get the compensation structure mapped out. Depending on where you are, what market you're in, just how competitive the job market is. Like I know in the Washington D.C. area, the job market is always good because there's a lot of government stability and a lot of other jobs there that are all well-paying and etc. So it's really tough to hire sales reps that have enough of a professional sort of stature. So you have to think about the compensation. You have to put together a competitive compensation package. Some other areas have been interesting. Like we have a number of customers that work for sort of resort type businesses, resort areas, and they're doing like local travel guides and that type of thing. And it's a different type of thing, and they're often able to hire in sort of intern level quality people, and it works great. And they hire them in for a summer or for just either right before the season starts, try to get them in there early, and etc. And they don't cost a lot. It's really just a lot of activities, etc. And that works great for that type of business. So you need to figure it out. Map out this compensation structure at the beginning. Base plus commission. I think sales always needs at least, on target rep, at least half their pay, and probably more than that should be commission based. Obviously, I think everybody would love to have their sales reps be commission only, and that's great, but that's a little bit of a challenge to get to work out, because often the people that'll take a job without any guarantee, etc., they're often not the type of people that are going to be successful. But it really depends on how you can do that. And then during the ramp-up period, if you do commission only or heavy commission-based, during the ramp-up period, you probably want to set a commission guarantee, and that should be based on, they need to do something to get that, so I recommend basing that on activities. So they need to do a certain number of contacts, etc., to achieve their commission, but even if they don't get the sales, there's a guarantee for a couple months of the ramp-up period. And understand the type of person your rep is and what they expect to make. If you have a new college graduate that has a degree in X, the market for that is, whatever it is. And so if you're going to plan on paying on target that's significantly less than that, it's probably not going to work. So think about the type of person you're hiring. Whereas if you're hiring a bunch of new high school graduates during the summer to go out over the resort town and sell a bunch of local business listings, their expectation of salary and payment is different. And if you're hiring B2B type rep for a very specialty media industry, some B2B type publishing, you're probably going to need somebody that's much more expensive and has some industry background, and et cetera, et cetera. So understand who your rep is and what they expect to make, and I wouldn't recommend lowballing the comp package, because probably you're going to waste a lot of your time and probably some of your money too. If somebody needs a job, you underpay them and they stay a month or two, you train them up, and then they're gone before you get any return on that. So think about that. All right, let's see. We have a question here. I don't have the capital to hire a full-time sales staff yet. I would like to hire a commission-only sales rep, but I have legal concerns requiring unemployment and other HR legalities. Would you recommend a site where I can find contract template and use to reduce my risk? Yeah, there's certainly sites out there that you can do that. I can't give you, I just need to preface this answer. I cannot give any legal advice or anything else. This may be terrible advice for your business, so think about using it. What I would tell you is that certainly is a valid concern. My experience with business and a lot of my customers, like I've seen all sorts of my customers have legal problems over the years. But I can tell you, even percentage-wise, it's a very small number that it actually happens to. And so it is a good idea to get a contract template and all that type of stuff to cover that. The chances of what I found is, like, if you're reasonable and you're a good person and you treat people fairly, you're probably not going to have any problems unless the person on the other end is really a bad apple, and it's a small percentage chance that's going to happen. So I often see, I've seen so many new businesses start and they spend a fortune on legal, so I think, yeah, finding a site or a template, that's a great idea. It's certainly, you need to have that stuff in writing is a good idea with anybody you have. I wouldn't worry about like getting sued too much. Like, if you don't have a business that's making a lot of money, usually people don't sue you. It's like they're going to hire a lawyer or whatever to do that, and a lawyer's going to look at a case and be like, hey, this is some business that doesn't have a lot of revenue or whatever. Like, you're going to pay me, I need a couple $1,000 to file the suit, and it's going to fall apart there. So I would just think about that carefully. What are some sites? I don't know. What are some legal sites? I don't know. LegalZoom. I don't know. You can check online. There's, Google it. I don't think the concern that you should have actually is the legalities of it. I think the concern you should have is whether commission-only rep is actually going to work, and whether they're going to be motivated enough to sell what you need to sell. So I would just think about that very carefully. But give it a try. Certainly, you'll learn a little bit from all the things that you do and all the experiences that you make. Okay. We got a little formatting, I guess, a screen resolution issue on this thing, but no worries here. For commission structure, one thing I like to do, and I've seen work pretty well, is a 2-tier commission structure is a great motivator. It has basically what that is until you hit your target every month, you make percentage X. If any sales above your target, you make 2X. And so that really rewards people well if they're performing and doing good. And so that works pretty good. You need to keep it simple, though. I wouldn't do a whole bunch of tiers or do things that are really complicated. Like, the rep needs to know when they're going in for a deal what they're going to make on that deal, et cetera. They just need to be able to mentally calculate it very quickly to get that done. For sales that have recurring revenue as a component, many of our customers sell a recurring package, of listings and other stuff. An easy way to do that, I don't know that I would pay out a rep a recurring percentage. What we recommend doing is just calculating the average lifetime value of the sale, and then just paying them a fee right at the beginning. You don't want your reps to get too comfortable and they have their own recurring revenue base. You want to be comfortable with your recurring revenue base, but you want your reps to be out hungry and trying to close the deal of the month. So it's a good idea. They close a recurring subscription, pay them out the average lifetime value on that, and then they move on for the next month. The next thing is don't be cheap. Often I see people worrying about when they set their commission schedule that the reps are the reps might make too much money, and they're, I'm going to overpay my reps. If he hits this, he's going to make way too much money, etc. I've seen that happen a couple times, but the reality is the problem is like 95% on the other side, where the rep isn't selling and not making enough. If you have a rep that you think you're overpaying, you're probably already in good shape. So don't be cheap about it, is what I'd say. You need, especially at the beginning when you're starting and building a new team, just be generous about it. One thing to keep in mind though is it's really nearly impossible to adjust a rep's commission schedule downward. Like, it just kills their motivation. Like, they quit and you're going to have all sorts of motivational problems, etc., morale problems that'll spread throughout the rest of your company. So it's really, really tough to lower the, say, now instead of paying you 20%, now I'm going to pay you 15% or 10%. They don't like that. What you can do on the other side is change their territory. They don't like that either, but that's another thing you can do. Or if you have marketing that's generating inbound leads for them, you can change the marketing allocation to get things a little bit more back in line. But I just say be careful about changing that schedule. So think about the schedule carefully before you set it. Don't be cheap, but realize you're probably not going to be able to change it, but there are some other levers you can pull. The commission schedule needs to be in writing, and it should include an example models instead of just a formula. Like you should have here's your formula. Here's what if you're on target, you're going to be making this. If you're over target, you're going to be making this. Woohoo! This is what you're trying to do. And if you're under target, you're going to be making this, and you need to do a lot better. It's really important to have that in writing. I wouldn't just talk to people, etc. I know many people do that. That sounds obvious, but I've seen it, and it's caused problems down the road, especially if there's things like a two-tier. One problem I've seen regularly with people doing a two-tier commission is the second tier isn't well specified. Is the second tier only on new sales above that tier, or is the second tier on every sale that came in? So if you're $1 over, your commission doubles, or whatever the story is. So just get all that in writing, and then if you put a model in with it, an Excel model, etc., then it's crystal clear, and you're not going to have any fights over that are going to cause morale problems down the road. The ramp-up period will probably take longer than you think, and I'll talk about this a little bit more, I think, on the next slide or so, but just be prepared for it. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. In terms of when to pay the commission out, it really depends on your rep. Like, if your reps are more professional, I know in some industries, like I know in Wall Street, my brother actually works on Wall Street, he's an investment banker, and they have this thing there where they pay the bonus. He's not a sales rep, he does like merger stuff, but they pay them basically a lot of their, like 2/3 of their salary comes in like once a year in a big check. But it's a more professional type deal, and they're not, they make a lot of money, so they're not struggling for money. Some other sales organizations pay on a quarterly basis. Those are often like bigger enterprise sales that might be, they're trying to close $1 million ticket or whatever it is. This type of thing, especially the eDirectory, often smaller sales, so monthly works great, bi-weekly, even weekly commission payouts, especially if it's like younger people doing local search, etc. Those type of things. You can do a weekly commission payout. So more professional, longer term. Otherwise, shorter term payouts. Oh, because there was some. Okay, so what happened there? We had a little layout problem. Sorry about that. One other thing here is to talk about, and just talk about this up front, is firing the sales team. Salespeople, especially good salespeople, it's a job because it's commission based. There's high volatility in the job, just in terms of like what they're making every month and all of that, and it attracts a certain type of person and a certain type of personality. And I mean, often some of these people are just like, their personal lives are like pretty insane, just from what I've seen over the years. It doesn't mean they're bad sales reps, but it's just like they have all sorts of vices and other types of problems, etc. And they may be great for a while, and then you have a problem, etc. And so one thing to think about is you're probably going to have to fire some sales reps either for low productivity or whatever else. And it's a necessary part, so think about that up front and just be ready for it. For a non-complex product, you're going to know very quickly whether it's going to work. If there's a longer sales cycle, more complex product, it may take longer, but some people are going to know within a couple of days whether it's going to work. And that doesn't mean they're going to make a sale quickly, but at least you'll see the way they're interacting with customers, or the way they're doing their calls, the way they're doing their reporting, whatever it is. You're going to have an idea pretty quickly. And I just say I'd recommend fire quickly. When you get the legal docs to hire them, you download the legal docs to hire them. As Dana mentioned, get the legal docs ready to fire them too, because you're probably going to have to do that at some point if you're running an effective sales organization. And don't sweat it. It's just part of business. Professional sales reps also, they understand that. It's either working for both of you, they're making a great commission, a great salary, or they're not. And if they're not, they don't want to be there either. Okay, so getting started for startup businesses, especially if you're just hiring your first reps, etc. I highly recommend you sell yourself before hiring somebody, and that'll get you. You'll really understand who your target customer is, what the sales pitch is, how to do the rebuttals if people aren't buying, etc. You'll get that process. You'll sort of have an intuitive understanding of it. And even if you come from a different area where you're not a salesperson, like myself with ARC, I know we're not a heavy sales organization, but in the original days, I'm a software engineer. I never had a bit of experience doing any of this, but for, when we started, it was a couple guys and I was sleeping on a couch, and it was, I had to do all the sales, etc. It was me and a couple trainee developers and whatever. That's how we got started, and I did that sale, and I sort of understood a little bit about it, and now I'm able to hire salespeople, etc. To do that. So I'd recommend doing it yourself, even if you're not a salesperson or don't think that's your profile. Go read a couple books, whatever, and give it a shot. And have your training and management metrics ready before you start. And then one other tip is I recommend hiring people in pairs. More than if you're just getting started, probably 2 is enough. If you're a bigger organization, you may try 3. I mean, if you've done this a bunch of times, you can bring in a set of reps, 4, 5, 6 people, train them all up at the same time. But I think pairs is really good, especially for the first one. It's more efficient for training, but more than that, it creates a competitive atmosphere, some camaraderie, etc. And it gives you a picture on who's performing and who's not. Is the problem the person, or is the problem the sales process, the sales model, etc.? As far as training goes, you want to have your phone and email scripts ready before anybody starts. Also, your rebuttal scripts, etc. When people are talking on the phone and so he says, no, I don't want to buy today, maybe next week. You need to have your rep ready to take that answer, etc. One other thing is to have a list of who to contact and what activities to do written down and planned for each day. And then ramp up the activities for a few days, where they start with escalating number of contacts. Maybe in the morning they come in, get their computer set up. Then they start doing a couple calls, etc. And then day 2, they make twice as many calls. Day 3, day 4. By the end of the first week, they should be into the rhythm. But it's good to get the training program all written down, and every person you hire, you can refine that. And the key to success is refining that sales process. You should understand, like, they're not just going to make one contract attempt and get through and make the sale and close up the deal right there. They're probably going to have to call, a couple times a week, or, email call combination a set of times, etc. Send a couple different emails, whatever it is, figuring out who the person to talk to is, etc. Each step should have a script, and depending on your rep, and if your rep's experienced, they may be able to deviate from that script. But it is important for them to have something to fall back on. And then you want to test everything with them, the rebuttals, etc. The sales scripts, they should use those on you before they make the calls. And just run the sales process there. As far as day-to-day management goes, you should definitely make sure that you have a system where your reps have the contact lists and everything they're going to do. Basically, a sales plan for the day. That should happen right there when they arrive in the morning. They should already have that prepared, so they can just come in and it's all set. And typically that's easy to do. Often many sales organizations, before the rep leaves for the day, they need to prepare their plan for the next day and submit it or something, just so it's visible to the manager. And that'll be, hey, I'm going to make these calls tomorrow, have these follow-ups, etc. One other thing is reps can build contact lists. This is often a part of the prospecting sales where they go out and part of their day is doing internet research to figure out who to talk to. And one other thing that's critical for the day-to-day management is have them send or post an activity report daily, just so you can see their activity metrics. How many calls they make, how many emails, whatever the story is, just some number there that you can tell if they're what their productivity is. And it's important that even if you have a CRM, and I'll talk about that in a second, and you can go in and look and see yourself, it's important that they post it, because you don't even necessarily need to read it. It's more for them posting it to know, like, hey, I need to look at my own activities. How many did I do? I need to keep my activity numbers up. And then for sales, any type of sales oversight, sales management is critical. You need to make sure that they're filling in the CRM, that they're doing things properly, that the process is followed. This needs to be done every day until you have the habits formed. If you let up early on and whatever, and they start messing up the CRM and not filling things out, or not marking the activities, and not sending the reports, once those habits are set, rolling them back and changing them is very, very difficult. Okay. A CRM, and today I think it's absolutely 100% critical that you use some type of CRM. Don't use a spreadsheet. Let me say that again, don't use a spreadsheet. And there's a lot of different CRMs out there. Salesforce, we used to use Salesforce for a number of years. It's enterprise-grade software. It's great, whatever, but it's pretty heavy. Microsoft has I think part of it is Microsoft Dynamics has a suite, Oracle SAP. Everybody has, there's a big enterprise packages. Most of our eDirectory customers, that's not the right stuff. Infusionsoft, it's a good product. They have a decent, it's more marketing automated centric than CRM. However, it does have all the features you need to run. You can do that. It's a bit expensive. It's a pretty heavy product as well. So often that isn't quite a great fit for our customers. It is a good product though. Another product that's pretty light and super inexpensive is Insightly. I think they have a couple user seats for free actually. It was built on top of like Google Apps. Like I think it tightly integrates with Gmail and all of that. I think I used to know some people that were using it. I don't know if they're still using it or whatever. They seemed happy with it when they first started. Sugar CRM used to be like the open source. It still probably is the open source challenger to Salesforce, etc. They used to be really hot. I think over the last couple of years, they got kind of clunky just in terms of all the interfaces, etc. And then the pricing on it, I don't know what it is today, but I remember they used to have a free plan and then, you know, completely open source, and then a paid plan. But the paid plan was like 35 bucks a seat, where Salesforce's paid plan was like 60 bucks, and Sugar was like super. It was a terrible product in comparison, and so I don't know that I recommend Sugar. You may take a look at it though. It's been a while since I have looked at it. There's a system called, which is also I think heavy on the marketing automation, called the Entreport. We seem to have a lot of people in Australia, our customers, using it. So I don't know if it's like an Australian company or what, or if that just happens to be a coincidence. I don't have any personal frame of reference in it, but it seems to be gaining momentum from what I've seen. And then my recommendation, which I think has the right balance between being a fully featured sales CRM and lightweight enough for like eDirectory type, you know, our eDirectory customers to use, is a system called Pipedrive. And it's a great system, multilingual, for if you're working overseas, etc. Take a look at it. I think it's modern. It was started well after Salesforce. It's affordable. They have all the sales metrics. It's easy to set up. It's all SaaS-based, etc. I know some of the another company that we invested in uses it. They've had great success with it. Good products. I recommend using that. One of the great features that I know Pipedrive has is like they'll compare sales rep activity within your organization and then like outside of your organization. So a sales rep will know, like, I don't know if he gets like, I don't know what it's called, like gold award or whatever, like he's top 5 sales rep in terms of activity numbers. You know, they don't take your data and like share it with anybody, but it just tells the rep like he's doing good relative to all other sales reps out there. So that's a good feature. Anyway, take a look at that. One thing I should mention about about CRM and eDirectory integration is we have some mods that'll in the mod store. It's often a bit of a custom thing, integrating a CRM with the directory. And the reason that's custom is often because people go in and customize their CRM and they add in a bunch of different additional fields and they change the workflow around and whatever. And so just having a stock mod that connects it with eDirectory often doesn't work anyway for people. So we like to talk to them, figure out what they're doing, figure out how to integrate that. It's still fairly affordable to do that integration though. But one thing you can do is you don't even need to get our mod to use a CRM. What you can do is just you import all your listing data and then you import your the data into your CRM as well. And then basically you just use those imports to keep them in sync. And then when somebody buys a listing, you can just set them up in the directory. So I don't think the that integration is all that critical, but if you do want a smooth integration, whatever, we have some mods in the mod store for that. Okay, and then key sales reports that you want to look at regularly, daily, certainly weekly, and certainly monthly are just the activity metrics. Activity metrics are a leading indicator for your sales team. Typically, you can tell if a lot of calls, stuff's happening, then the sales are going to come in later, whatever your sales cycle is. Pipeline report is anybody you're currently talking to that you expect to close up. What's in the pipeline? What's going to close? What are your actual sales numbers? What are your results? What have you sold? And then one other thing that is really important to do an analysis of each month is the won-loss report. And basically, you look at every deal that you didn't close, and you figure out why didn't you close it. And then from that analysis, you can tell what you need to change in terms of your product. Was it too expensive? Are you missing some, hey, I'm selling listing, but maybe you should also sell ad management or something else with it, sell social media management, some other service with it. You can figure that out through your win-loss reports. That's a really important report to look at. All of the CRMs have a whole lot more reports, and so you can look through there. There's most of them are based on best practices, so they'll give you some good ideas. One other thing is with the sales team is to keep it fun. I highly recommend cash bonus on the first sale. Whenever they get their first sale, to come in, whip out a $100 bill, make it public. Hey, first sale, yay! Everybody claps, that kind of thing. Do regular competitions and bonuses. Cash is great, even if you're paying by direct deposit. Throwing some money around, putting some bills up on the wall, especially with these lower ticket sales, is a great idea. Gets everybody fired up and running. That's one of the great things if you have an inside sales and everybody's kind of in the same room, in the same area. There's a competitive sort of environment that builds and helps everybody perform well. Recognize your performers. This is activity performers and results performers. So when I was in high school, I used to run track, and I'm kind of a big lanky guy. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't the speediest guy on the team, and I remember that. And I remember one time I was like, I didn't get a lot of medals or whatever. I ran the 800 meters, which is like the worst race because it's just physically painful. But one thing I remember about that. And it was like after I left, I remember after I left the team, I was talking to the coach, and basically the value that I added, the coach told me to the team was that I worked pretty hard in practice because I knew I wasn't all that good, and so basically my activity numbers were good, and so there were guys that had a lot more sort of native talent than me at the running, and they were able to achieve better results without really trying. But I was out there every day just kind of pounding it, and so that was the value that I added, was putting in the activities. So I think it's really important that you recognize your sales team, the part of your sales team that's putting in the activities, as well as those that are achieving the results, because if the guys that are highly talented, the people that are highly talented do the activities, they're going to perform a lot better. And then one other thing is recognize your performers. Give Kobe Bryant the ball. He's the guy that scores all the points. So that's the person that you want to give the inbound leads. That's the person you want to give the best territories to, etc. It may be like, hey, I have this one sales rep who's doing great. Why don't I put him in this underperforming territory? I'm not sure that's a good idea. Often you want to match best opportunity with the talent to achieve the best results. Okay. What doesn't work, and we're getting to the end here, what I've seen doesn't work is hiring a large number of remote reps. I know one time a couple of years ago I had a client and he was so excited, he was telling me about his sales plan, and basically he was hiring reps nationwide. It might have even been globally. You would basically use Craigslist, hire them up, put them through a phone interview, do commission only, etc. And it just didn't work at all. He didn't get any results, and he didn't spend like that much, money on it because they weren't selling, and it was all commission only, I think. But he wasted a lot of time, and it just didn't work. What also doesn't work is commission-only comp plans. Often makes it hard to get quality reps. You may be able to pull this off. I've seen people pull this off, but often they have a brand or something else running. If you just have a website, I've seen a lot of people try to do this. Hey, I have a website. It doesn't really have any traffic. I'm a new business, so I don't have the money, and this is kind of the conversation earlier. I'm stretched on money. I don't really have the money to pay a rep any type of base. So I'm going to put them on commission only. It's really tough to keep them motivated through the period that they need to make enough activities to close sales. So I'd recommend some type of payment, even if it's only payment based on activity. It doesn't need to be a fixed monthly, but it needs to be something that they can earn even if they're not necessarily selling. And that amount shouldn't be enough for them to pay all their bills, or they may end up getting lazy, but something there that gets them through the ramp period. If you're already running a sales team and you're selling and whatever, and you can tell a rep, hey, listen, if you're any good, you're going to come in here and make 50K, 100K, whatever it is, and you have that history, then you're able to pull off the commission-only comp, no problem. What also doesn't work, I've seen, is part-time reps who pay their bills with another job and don't really have any fixed hours and don't really have any fixed commitment. That usually flames out very, very quickly. Also, like partner, hey, they're my sales partner, whatever, that doesn't often work. selling something that doesn't have a real value proposition, that's tough to do. I've seen that actually work a number of times. Actually, I've done some work with a number of companies actually that just run really, really sort of efficient yellow page style sales organizations, all phone-based sales, large scale, auto dialer, etc. And it can work financially, but I don't know. For me, it kind of seems like a scummy business. So if that's what you're doing, good luck to you. But I recommend finding a value proposition. And if you don't have the traffic on your website yet, there's still a lot of ways to provide a value proposition by adding additional services. Or even if you just take whatever you're selling, hey, you sell it for $300, put $200 of that dollars into AdWords or whatever, some other traffic to drive traffic right to the page of whoever paid you. That's some value you're providing, and that can work well. One other thing that doesn't work is not doing any oversight and just trying to run it. It's really good if you can do tight oversight through the CRM, listen to people's calls, etc. That's really, really important. That reminds me, there was one other CRM I didn't mention there. It's called Close.io. It's a very expensive CRM. I think it's $100 a month to start, but it includes, I think, unlimited phone, and so I think they record all the calls and that type of thing. And it's that may be something to look at if you build in the cost of the phone bill. It may just all work out. I was just thinking about that. One other thing that I've seen, I've never really seen it work, but I know it does work. I've seen it not work a lot. I've heard it does work. I've never actually personally seen it work, is hiring an outsourcing sales organization, like just making a deal with some company in the Philippines or India or wherever to hire 6 seats to do your telemarketing. I've never actually seen that work. I think that does work if you have a really well-defined sales process that's already been tested. And you know it works, and it's just a matter of, hey, I got to make this number of calls to get this, and I need to have the people trained and whatever, and then you can do it. I wouldn't start with that, though. All right, and what does work, from my experience, early career sales reps, I don't want to say young, but often people that are just getting started, haven't really figured out what they're going to do in life. But you really have to hire based on attitude. They just need to be hungry people, talkative, outgoing, etc. Especially if they've had a little content. Door-to-door sales are great because people that are knocking on doors, they get immediate feedback and no. And if they've had any success, like there's a company, Cutco, that sells these knives. I think it's a United States thing where they sell knives door to door. That type of experience is really good because people are going, they're having personal interactions. It's a hardcore just selling. That's great. So if you can get a little bit of sales experience selling Girl Scout cookies, Boy Scout, whatever, that stuff is great. Popcorn, whatever people are selling door to door, that's always great. One of the best things that I've seen work a lot is combining the content building and the selling. And that way, even if your rep isn't selling, like actively like making enough sales, what's happening is they're building content on your website. And because that content, what that'll do is drive more traffic and interest to your website. So over time, you'll see everything lift up, and then they'll have more success selling. And so to build content, basically, they start with a database that you buy or they scrape or whatever. And then they go in there, and so their sales process is, the first thing they do is create the listing, upload photos, whatever, get the listing in good shape, and then they call, email the business. And they do that a few times with each listing in there that they've added, augmented. And then when they have those conversations, the person already has the listing built, etc. They're much more likely to pay for it for the upgrade or pay to leave it there, etc. So I highly recommend that. I've seen that work a lot. I think it's a great way to do it. Also, if you're doing door-to-door stuff like Resort Town, just sending people out to canvass local businesses, you can send them out with a written sheet, and then the reps, or even an iPad or pod or something, they can do it right there. But even just often, they could just go out, just to save time, go out with a pen and a piece of paper, maybe a cell phone to take a couple photos. They just write down the info, get a business card, whatever. Clip it all together and then move on. And then later at night, they can update the listing and really make it beautiful, and then go back and try to close the sale later. That works great too. Doing a base comp for building listings and hitting activities, that's usually a good idea. And this base comp can be very, very low if you don't have a lot of cash on hand, but I do recommend paying something for it. One other thing that works great, especially if you're struggling with value proposition, is bundling other services and other offerings with the listings that you're selling. These are things like, we'll create a website for you, we'll build your Facebook page for you, we'll manage your AdWords for you, these kind of marketing services. Other types of, there's a whole bunch of other things you can offer depending on the sector, et cetera. So bundling services is certainly a great idea. I should mention actually that our website builder platform, if anybody wants to offer reselling of very simple brochure websites and reselling of email hosting, we have that platform ready. I'm happy to give anybody here a beta copy, a couple months free, whatever. You can go out and sell websites and email for people. That's all ready, and I think next week we're going to push that out live for people, so that's great. But really think about the value proposition as far as that goes. And let's see, what do we have next? And I think, if anybody has any questions, let me know. I know I just kind of rambled on here for, that was almost a solid hour. I could probably go on for 2 more hours as well, just with all the stuff I've seen over the years. And I guess the last thing I would say is there's an experimentation process to running this, and so you're going to find a lot of stuff doesn't work, but certainly stay on it, and just keep trying, and just don't give up. I got to wrap it work, I spent some money, it just is a headache, and I'm not going to do that anymore. I'll just try to do marketing. Don't give up, because I know having a sales rep certainly doesn't work with this style of business, and you just need to get everything figured out. All the dynamics of what are they going to cost, how does the commission work, what's the sales process, etc. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, lay them on me. I heard you were working for e-commerce. Yes, the storefront e-commerce is ready. For eDirectory, we have an online store. It's based on the Magento platform, which is an open source. It's an open source shopping cart. It's called the Storefront mod, we have a mod set up where it integrates with eDirectory and all of that, and then actually it works. It's possible to make it work as a marketplace where they configure it where other sellers can sell inside your store, etc. So that's all ready to go. If you're just trying to sell like shopping carts to your customer, like shopping cart type websites, you can let me know about that, and I'll do. I think I know how to get all that done for you, where you can just go out and sell that like tomorrow, just via some reseller package on either some third-party services, or we can figure out how to set that up and host it for you. You can sell like Shopify sites to people, and then you bill them, and then you just manage it. The value add you're providing there is the manager. So there's a lot of ways to do e-commerce add-on. Just send me an email. Can we paste in my email there? Just jamesjoe@eDirectory.com. And send me an email. I can send you some more info on doing that, depending on what you're looking to do and how that's going to work, either whether you use the storefront marketplace or you want to actually sell individual stores to people, or how you want that to work. Great. Wayne, we'll send you the site builder data, no problem. And if anybody else has any questions, comments, etc., please let me know. Just send me an email, jamesjoe@eDirectory.com. Okay. Oh, we have one more person typing. Yeah. If anybody has anything else, we'll sit here for another minute or so. No hurry. But yeah, I hope that's helpful. Okay, great. Okay, yeah, I hope it's been helpful. So, and I think in the future, we're actually going to work on trying to provide some templates for just various tools like how, what should an activity report look like? What's an example of an Excel sheet for a commission schedule? All of that. It's probably going to take us some time. We just have a lot going on right now. But if you're looking for any of this stuff, just search on the internet. There's tons of stuff out there. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, great. Everybody have a great afternoon. Thank you.